Next time you enter a classroom, look around. Are there blacks, whites, Hispanics, and Asians all sitting together and learning the same thing? Or are they separated by walls and harsh prejudices? In 1964, Vivian Malone and James Hood attempted to do the same thing that we do every day here at Penn State. That is, learn. However, racial prejudices of the time prevented them from entering the campus at the University of Alabama without a National Guard escort. The federal court had previously ruled that the university had to integrate, but this decision was met with considerable resistance from the state government. Governor Wallace was quoted saying he would block their entrance with his own body. This was the last in a string of events that had been taking place all spring, with the violence increasing every time. But it was this instance that caused President John F. Kennedy to speak on national television the night of the incident to address the escalating tensions across the country. John F. Kennedy had been careful to stray away from touchy subjects in his campaign as president. He had only a small margin in Congress and had narrowly defeated his opponent in the presidential race. However, this was a cause that he could not remain silent on. He was seated in the Oval Office with an incomplete speech hastily written sitting right in front of him when he opened his speech with a short acknowledgement of the day's events in Alabama. He commended the students of the University of Alabama for their good conduct during the altercation. He then appealed to the entire country, asking them to look in on themselves and examine their conscience concerning events like these. He pointed out this nation was founded by men of many backgrounds and on the grounds that all men were created equal. This was a mission of this nation, to promote equality and freedom across the world. Yet, we are not all free in this country. Kennedy points out that when sent off to war, it is not only white Americans that go to fight for our country, and surely fighting overseas for freedom would ensure one's freedom in their own homeland. Kennedy expresses his opinion that it should be possible for Americans of any color to receive equal services in public, to attend public institutions, and to register and vote without fear. Kennedy uses the term American to include citizens of every color and nationality, therefore including every group into the term American. This creates a sense of nationalism and equality. President Kennedy was an inspirational leader who united a country divided. He delivered his speech with passion and empathy, pulling at the American heart. Kennedy was able to do this through the use of pathos and quotations, quoting the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, both documents that would instill a sense of nationalism into the American heart. He was able to use pathos, or the passion of the American people, by saying that this great nation was not fully free until all men have equal opportunity. John F. Kennedy makes sure to point out that the United States was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds, and that this country would not be the great nation that it was without equal opportunity afforded to its citizens by its founding fathers, and that it was the citizens' duty to carry out the founding fathers' wishes and afford the same luxuries to every citizen, whether black or white or brown or purple. He claims that the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. This is a synagogue, as Kennedy is referring to all men, women, and children of America, black and white, when he's giving this speech. The nation at this time was in turmoil. Protests and riots were being held all over the country, in northern and southern cities alike. Racial tensions were at an all-time high. But there was also groups of individuals who were striving to make their own communities better and to better racial relations. John F. Kennedy made sure to acknowledge these efforts and to urge others to follow this example and to examine their own conscience concerning this debacle. John F. Kennedy made a bold move by declaring this issue not a legal or legislative or partisan or even domestic issue. He publicly declares this a moral issue, as old as the scriptures and the Constitution. This is a strong use of pathos, as it calls upon the founding documents of this nation and the morals that it upholds. It calls upon the natural nationalism that is instilled in every American, prompting them to take action. At the end of this speech, John F. Kennedy announced the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and that he would be submitting legislation to Congress that would enforce equal access to all public institutions, accommodations, and other parts of racial discrimination. Martin Luther King later wrote to the president, calling his speech and this civil rights legislation the most sweeping and forthright ever presented by an American president. The Civil Rights Act eventually became law. Unfortunately, John F. Kennedy was assassinated 7 months prior to its enactment and never lived to see part of his dream come true. We have made extreme strides concerning race since the day that John F. Kennedy gave this speech. Yet, one could argue that racism is still a huge issue today. While we may boast of diversity, it may not actually be the case. According to College Power's analysis of Penn State is still 76% white. We are only 4% African American, 5% Asian, and 5% Hispanic. I challenge my listeners to take careful note next time they walk into 100 Thomas and look at the 700 students surrounding them, all there to learn the same thing, and ask themselves, is racism fully defeated? Is John F. K's legacy of the Civil Rights Act being completely fulfilled?